Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. Today's guest is Fernando Vossa, and he is an artist and architect, and I'm looking forward to an incredible conversation today. And I have a bio to read you. Fernando Vossa is an independent biofuturist, Terra healer, and Artivist. In 2013, he focused on developing a whole body regeneration and quantum access chamber dome home called Vossahedron. The Vossahedron project is an integration of heart-based wisdom and quantum technologies to establish an architecture that regenerates our body at the cellular level, expands our mental capabilities, and connects us to higher spiritual awareness. Vossa's approach is through direct access to his cosmic womb and frequential ascension principles refined from the intention to seed an entire civilization of Avatar Creator Consciousness. Vossa's main thesis is to identify the quantum alchemy of energy, fractalization of thought intention, and interdimensional cymatic configurations that result in consciousness expanding architecture that coherently mitigates heat, cold, sound, crystals, water, light, magnetism, plasma, and naturally connect with the Novus templates of Master Ancestor origins. Imagine a healing art installation as a home that generates its own electricity, harvests water, and grows organic food while being hurricane and earthquake resistant. Inhabitants are shielded from harmful radio, HAARP, cell towers, and various forms of MK Ultra radioactive fallout. Vossa's Biofuturism lab is called the Center of Mass Creation. And I met Fernando at a conference we both spoke at in 2018, and he's a really nice man. And we have some complex things to talk about. Now, those of you who are on radio and are listening just to the audio, this is Saturday, June 4th, and I will have this uploaded to my YouTube tomorrow sometime, and that you can look it up on YouTube as Nacht Waffen Pilot. So he's got some incredible art, and I would not want you to miss it. Welcome, Fernando.
Wow, Penny. It is so surreal to always hear what you think your bio is, because we've become such multidimensional beings. There is no true description. There's no true profile that we could share that would make sense. And one of the many things I would like to share today is that we can go into the future of ourselves beyond the secret space program, beyond the traumas of our childhood, because we've already had so many beautiful levels of disclosure and whistleblowers, right? One of the questions and invitations I'm posing here, plus a shout out to Daryl Healer here from the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. How would it be to engage and wield everything we have experienced as awakened beings? Those of us who are contactee experiencers, those of us who've gone into those Black projects and came back, those of us who were hounded in elementary school and recruited into Psychic Sentinel and other programs, how could we take that deep catalyst and apply it in a brand new way? What do you think of that as an opener?
I think that that's step two for most people. For most of the folks that I've dealt with, step one is someone finally listening to them. When they
Yes.
finally are able to tell someone, this happened to me, and be heard, that's step number one. And you're not going to get them any further until you do that.
Oh, very much understood.
So what you
Mhm.
described is an excellent step two.
Mhm. For those who would like to have some context, so we know we're speaking in that frequency. The first major awakening experience after my birth was in Anchorage, Alaska, as a Mexican from Guadalajara relocating to Anchorage as a 7.5-year-old boy. We lived
That's quite
next
a
to
shock.
Elmendorf Air Force Base and Fort Richardson, military bases in Anchorage. And this is all during the height of the Cold War. So as a little boy from Mexico going into Alaska, living right next to the military housing, what's known as Government Hill, that was the first time that I noticed technology, that we had close encounter UFOs flying over that base. I could see them from the trailer court. I would fly and they would be sonic booms. And I'm not talking about fighter jets. I'm talking about disc craft. I don't know why they would be such out in the open in the mountains in Alaska. But one day in school, I had to walk home and I wasn't really equipped for that winter. You know, you're supposed to wear a full snowsuit. And I got lost because you could head toward the military base across a field where I could see lights in the distance, or I could head toward these apartments on a cliff that we lived in. And as I walked further through the woods, the temperature started dropping at night and my body started freezing. And this is along with many things that many of us experienced, came from traumatic childhoods, dysfunctional families, a complete non-integration into society. I had already been through that as a child. And I laid down in the snow and I asked to go. I just didn't want to be there anymore. Not that I wanted to commit suicide as a little boy. I just was tired of the whole situation. And right then, a light appeared around my body. It wasn't like a light coming from a UFO pointing at me. I'm talking about my consciousness was flooded. And a voice said to me, "We know who you are because we are you," in Spanish. And it wasn't a voice speaking to me next to me. It was from inside. And at that moment, I felt my body rise from the snow and the ground and go up in the air, and I could look around. I can't tell if my physical body was with me or it was an out-of-body experience.
Okay.
But I was going so fast that I could see the earth getting smaller in front of me. I remember even going by a satellite, like some piece of metal going by. And during this quick elevation journeying, this voice was speaking to me in messages and in images. It was no longer speaking in Spanish. And it was sharing with me the imagery of how I was born on Earth, the molecular assembly of my body, the planning from even seeing pictures of Earth before there was an Earth, like when the water came here from Tiamat. And when all these things were happening, it was like very fast downloads. And all that voice said, "Watch this." And we headed toward the sun. And as we were approaching the sun, I was thinking, I could still remember I was a little boy back in Alaska. And at the same time, I asked, am I going to burn up? We're going into the sun. And what I saw is the sun at a certain level is not a big giant thermonuclear fireball. It's this ocean of plasma. And we went into that ocean of plasma. Deep below it, there was land. And the scale of it was bigger than the earth by thousands of times. I'm talking about mountains and valleys that had this bright orange amber color. And we were flying around, and there were cities there, and there were structures of planets, comets coming into the ocean, and craft bigger than the Earth. Giant, organic looking, kind of Oumuamua craft looking. Some of them were thousands of miles. Some of them were illuminated with little lights. And we headed toward a mountain range below all that plasma. It's like we were underwater, and went into a cave that was a vortex portal. And we ended up at the center of the galaxy, the Milky Way. And this consciousness was speaking to me in a very different way, sharing knowledge that this is where stars are born. And the more loving consciousness exists closer to the center of the galaxy, where there's more light. And there wasn't a black hole there. It was like two systems, a white hole and a black hole, intertwined like a yin-yang symbol,
Yes.
pulsing slowly. It's
Yes.
a type of quantum mechanism that brings in matter from other dimensions into the Milky Way. Does this sound familiar?
Oh God, this sounds familiar. I keep hearing all kinds of nonsense from people, and this is the first you are the first person who has described what I know is there, because I've piloted a ship to it.
Ooh, you're giving me chills right now.
So I have done this physically in a ship, where you did it, maybe astral, maybe. And I have told people there are portals in the sun that will connect you to the center of the galaxy, and they think I'm nuts. But
I was later to learn there are civilizations that have planned this. The ancient cosmic Maya, many of the Quechua people from Peru already had craft that could do this. So as we were entering the galaxy and got a chance to take a breather, kind of like the movie Contact, look around, we went into that pulsing system, accelerating, and appeared in another part of the universe, where this giant galaxy, and the Milky Way is roughly estimated to have a couple of 100 billion stars, and our neighbor Andromeda roughly, let's say, 1 trillion suns. Well, I got to see a galaxy that was even larger than Andromeda. And galaxies have color and frequency. You could hear the whole movement. Roughly, it sounds like angel voice tones, continuous ah, and then different octaves playing all the way up to that pitch you hear in your ears and beyond. And this consciousness voice said to me, this is you. This galaxy we're looking at is as far as your level of who you are could see. You could not understand another version of you. Every human on earth is one of these. I got to see the galactic seed that my soul went through to incarnate on this and other planets, and had a communion as a little boy with the knowing that I am one of those. And there's a direct correlation of the stars in your seed galaxy to the cells in your body, like they're flowing stars. I got to see what my body looks like to beings from that level. We look like walking galaxies with trillions of genetic stars flowing through us. After that, a lot of other things happened. I awoke walking home, losing roughly 6 hours. It was already nighttime, late. I got home at night. I had no clue. So
Were your
who
parents
do you
worried?
tell? Do I tell my dad? He was working as a chef at a restaurant. My brother, he was like, I didn't even get along with my brother at that age. Your teachers? This is that first huge cognitive dissonance that occurs.
Yeah, you can't. When you and I were kids, you could not tell the teacher. No. That's a guaranteed. Your mother will get a note and you will be taken to the shrink, or have your ass beaten for making up stories. So
synchronistically, not too long after that, as I shared with you a little bit, I did a report for the science fairs at school. I had a fascination with UFOs. And even before this, I remember the teacher going around the class asking us, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a nurse or a fireman or an astronaut. And they got to little Fernando, and I told my teacher, I am already a futurist. By sixth grade, I spoke full English, from fourth grade on. And my teacher goes, well, what is that? And I said, well, somebody who thinks about what we're going to be doing in the future, how we're going to live, how we're going to create. And she goes, oh, that sounds nice. Like, what are you going to be doing 5 years in the future? And I said, let's talk about 1,000,000 years.
They're trying to limit you to
so she's like, next, who's
job.
So yeah, but for my science fair project, I had found a book in the library, one book on UFOs of Area 51. It was a thin, lots of pictures of craft from what is that synchronicity? Why would an elementary school from Alaska have books of actual pictures of UFOs from Area 51?
Because
that book, I don't even find it.
Like you said, there are lots of craft in Alaska because there's no Van Allen belts there. So that is, if you're in a craft from another place and you're coming into Earth, you come in through the poles because there are no Van Allen belts there.
There's the Van Allen belts, the asteroid fields to contend with, and there are pathways to get through all of that. I have later learned. When I did my science fair report, I had a fold out cardboard with pictures of UFOs, and I stood in front of the class. I couldn't wait to share. I thought this was normal. And I told the kids somewhere in the middle, I can talk to these things. They talk to me. And I got sent to the principal for that.
Yeah,
we're not allowed to say that.
I got my ass beat at home for telling my dad that I could talk to them,
to
that
UFOs.
I could see them.
And then I had that whole series of psi tests, IQ tests, and toward the last year of my elementary school, and I went to Ptarmigan Elementary, if anybody wants to research any of, because I have not found the ties of people would come to school dressed formally, like in ties and pantsuits, and they would meet with us. Imagine nowadays, do you think a parent would let a kid meet with some strangers that came to their school in a separate room by themselves? You know,
you had the meetings. Okay. Yeah, from second grade through eighth grade, once a year, a couple of men in dark suits would show up, and a half dozen kids from the school from different grades would be pulled into the principal's office, and we would be given testing, and it would include the psionics tests and the funny shaped blocks and upside down puzzles that you had to put them together without turning them over. And it was all of that stuff every year.
Well, I didn't know that field trips.
It was only a half dozen of us out of a school of maybe 1,200 or more.
Wow. Well, I would say back in the late 60s, a teacher may encounter one of these kind of children in their life, in their career. Now I imagine they're everywhere. Gifted, awakened star beings with telepathic abilities, multidimensional positioning, lucid dreaming. I was still at the age where I could lucid dream and feel that I could bring things from my dream into this reality. So one of the many transformative things I have done is gone back into my childhood step by step. And I recently got back from Alaska last week, and I visited many of the places that I had these experiences and just flooded it with light, with consciousness, to let that little boy know the person I am right now, all of the learning and knowledge that is in this body and these genetics, I have entangled with that little boy as a gift from the future. I know I received this stuff in dreams, night school, encounters with light ships. That's a version of us from the future coming back and remote viewing ourselves, giving ourselves the cheat codes, if you want to look at that way. And Penny, wouldn't just out of pure compassion for yourself, you would want to come back and help yourself in any way you can?
I remember getting into enough trouble talking about what happened that I thought that for my younger self, it was kinder to just let her be.
Oh, interesting. More gentle.
More gentle, because she was already dealing with a lot. They had mind wiped me, but things kept bubbling up from the subconscious. And the young Penny was dealing with interdimensionals all the time. And my father couldn't see them, and if he couldn't see them, they weren't real. The one thing that did was it taught me what was 3D and what wasn't.
A multi-dimensional discernment.
Yeah, multi-dimensional discernment. That's what his inability to see taught me, the discernment, so that I knew which was which. And I still to this day will see 3 or 4 dimensions overlapping.
And that's a fantastic skill, ability. It's a superpower to stand in one dimension of reality and in another and be able to bridge them without going crazy, you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not crazy.
We have reality schizophrenia. That's built into our experience already.
Well, this was the superpower that the SSP used, because the ability to stand in more than one density and take physical objects with you is the skill required to pilot a ship through hyperspace.
If one of the many gifts as humans that off-world intelligence would want to control is our ability to materialize from thought. We don't really need matter replicators on the Star Trek level, the microwaves that make food. That gift of creative ability through vision is one of the sought after human gifts that we don't even know we're wielding.
The A.R. Borden group, I've interviewed a couple of them on my YouTube.
Oh, beautiful.
Michael Lee Hill is one, Karen Christine Patrick. They were both at Stargate, the conference we met at.
Yeah.
And they were trained by A.R. Borden's people to be able to manifest physical objects out of the ambient energy in the air. And they called this LERM. It's an acronym.
Learn.
It's an acronym, and I'm not sure what it stands for, but that's what it's defined as, is creating physical objects from the ambient energy in the atmosphere. And
that should be a creative curriculum for children right away.
You would
from day
think
one.
so.
But not in a weaponized military way.
No,
you know, after studying remote viewing from Ingo Swann and others, Major Ed Dame also, you know, there are other paradigms of remote viewing that are not so weaponized and militarized. So I invite many of the viewers to, at some point, design your own curriculum for these abilities by beginning to ask, how would I like it to be? How would have liked to learn how to remote view, teleport, matter replicate, but in a way that aligns with nature, the planet, and the heart, in a loving, compassionate way, not as
important, because I have known people who only knew the militarized method, and they were very intrusive and invasive with their remote viewing. If you're going to remote view someone in their home in a civilian context, you need consent. You don't just invade and start wiping out whatever you find there.
And I agree with you. Some of the militarized procedures in practice of remote viewing or psychic sentinel work, and for those who are not aware of psychic sentinel, these are specifically children that are recruited to be psychic blocks to Black programs. They are psychic fences and psychic assassins, if you want to see what. But what I wanted to share is that if one follows Ed Dames or Ingo Swann type of programming for remote viewing, where you have to go through a series of protocols, you're producing certain frequencies from your body that technology, AI, is detecting. If you are, let's say you go to the internet, download these training courses and practice them on your own, there's technology in your cell phone through the computers that knows, oh, here's another sucker that's going through this. Let's follow and see how far he goes or she goes, right?
Track their steps, yes.
These are the tentacles of these programs that are continually recruiting. That none of that stuff has gone away. It's only gotten more sophisticated. And I don't show this and share this in fear.
I will share that I was never good at following the protocol. That what I actually do is separate and bilocate with my consciousness, not my body.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I'm
love that.
actually there watching, and then I come
You're
back.
superpositioning already. There's no remote anything.
Yeah, there's no remote because I'm there.
So I want to put a freeze frame on the sequence of events of what I just described as one of my first full death. My body froze during that time in below zero weather. Through doing that cosmic journey, which was like going into a light ship, having an encounter, close encounters of the 12th kind, I would say, and ask the question from this point of view right now, as a scientist, as a biologist, as a cognitive analyst, I've gone through all these things. What was happening in my young body the very first time I saw a UFO? What sequence of neural firings occurred? What sequence of cosmic DNA activations to bring about a Vossa right now, a Fernando that I am right now, and understand that fractal process, the fractalization, the spreading activation, the ability to have a consciousness that can contain these realities. Now I look at it from a very different point of view. I look at it as not only did I go through these experiences, I also am moving through a sequence of victimhood consciousness, which seems to be the default for most humans. And there are so many layers of the victimhood consciousness. It's tied into your parents and your religion and the society you were born into and the educational system and so many tentacles of that. And then the unity consciousness that has been approached by Buddhism, by a lot of the civilizations that were here thousands of years, that were able to move into unity consciousness and understanding the alchemy of everything, that you can be this kind of frequency and you can transmute yourself into this other frequency because they're the same thing. Now let's explore another evolution of this creator consciousness. When you're able to move into asking, how am I doing this? How did my soul, sourced from a cosmic womb, gave rise to a universe that birthed this body? What was all of that? And how do I create with that knowledge? How do I integrate all of the energies that I've learned to understand? Gravity, magnetism, light, sound, plasma energy, electricity, thought energy, love energy, and keep going. They're infinite. There isn't just 4 or 5 basic forces, they're infinite. And create a union that those are you. You know how in school, Penny, we learned that science wasn't you. It was just as bad as religion. God is not you. You're a part of God, but he's not you. He's this other thing. Ascended masters are not you. They're these other. And science, the physics of electricity is your body. The biology, the form, the laws of reality are you. That's what happens when you start moving into creator consciousness. So it's not like, how do I control matter with my mind? No, that is an extension of you. When you talk to the mountains, you communicate with the ocean. When you integrate your body in symbiosis and in homeostasis, this is where we're playing with right now with creator consciousness and designing at what you mentioned earlier, the center of mass creation, an entire curriculum for creator avatars, if you want to use that word, for children and others who want to come and interact with their own energetic versions of themselves and ask a whole different kind of question. How would I design a kind of retreat center for accelerated ascension? That word that even Daryl was asking me about, that's been co-opted and corrupted, the word ascension.
Yeah, you need to define that one, because I've heard too many out there, and the common understanding of the word is, I want to leave my body and go to another dimension, and I want to be pure light. And guys, that means you're dead here.
Well, I love what you just mentioned, because early on in my adult awakening, like from the early 2000s, I moved to California, San Diego, and around the Yogananda Center, hanging out with a lot of esoteric researchers. And I can tell you that Ascension for me is understanding at a deeper level the visible bandwidth of all of my senses, my eyes, my ears, the visible bandwidth of my thoughts in my mind, the range of thoughts that I have. What is outside of that? How could I increase the bandwidth of the light that my body can perceive? How do I increase the energetic access of my heart magnetic field here on Earth in this body? What is possible with this beautiful creation, vessel, genetics? What was discovered by my ancestors, not only the recent ancestors, but the billion-year-ago ancestors, and off-world evolution. That's still encoded here. Mm-hmm. Ascension for me is increasing the frequency of the perception of reality that in the here and now, which includes asking deeper questions to the point where you are able to, one is able to receive thoughts as complete realms. We can't do that with a left-right broken up compartmentalized brain that we have right now. We would have to have a process of unifying our body brain so that we think with our digestive brain. We're able to process thoughts liquid through our body in our muscular brain, our skeletal structural brain, with our skin derma brain, you know, this beautiful separation between the inner verse and the outer verse. Learn to see with all the eyes in all your cells. Would there be a process? Has anybody come up with a curriculum? And the answer is yes. I'm one of the beings that's designing the visualizations, the protocols, the ways to turn into that artist. The ascension is to, for me, is to ascend, to turn up the capability of what we mean by being here on Earth. And if that includes quantum tunneling through timelines, learning how to do that, because back in the 90s and 2000s, when I started going through a lot of awakening, my mind, and I'm a psychedelic psychonaut also. I don't take any substances now, but I used to.
I didn't ever need the substances.
You would think, why would we need them after all the stuff we went through, right?
Yeah, I don't need them. I have to work at staying in the body.
Yes. But back then, my mind packed its bags and left my body behind. And later I learned
I know
that
that feeling.
your physical body suffers abandonment. That's where all that cancer starts coming from, and depression and drug use, and the abandoned body that wants to go with you, wants to be there for you in love and compassion, to go on those journeys with you. Your body wants to learn everything you're learning. Your body wants to experience seeing a UFO as much as your mind, and going into craft and meeting star family. So now my body is up front and center in my life of everything that I'm doing. Every cell, every piece of DNA is involved in this. It's a shift, isn't it? I don't want to be numb.
Yeah, it's a major shift to realize that your body's supposed to go with you, and to understand that you have the ability to do this without substances, and you have the ability to create. And people, you know, I've got I've gotten messages from people. They send me a video from a channeler, and they say, "We know you did this."
That's interesting.
So yeah, yeah.
I haven't reached that level.
Title that under things I don't talk about in public.
Let's shake up the AI. One of the fields of study I went into when I first got in front of computers in high school in the 80s was artificial intelligence. I remember seeing the movie Tron, and I thought that's what computers were already. You know, Tron came out in roughly 78. They weren't even close to that. You know, computers back then, the closest thing, because they didn't even have personal computers when that movie came out. They had mainframes in corporations. When I
I worked for Tulare County in the 70s, and we had a mainframe, and the way it processed jobs was very much like what they described in Tron.
The CPM, it's Master Control Program.
Yeah,
so I got in front of computers with the punch cards.
Yeah.
You would write out your program, print out your punch cards, and feed them into the IBM system, and
exactly.
later the DEC systems, and then later other systems. Well, the first personal computer back in my day was one of the Apples or the Ataris and all those compact and TRS-80s. Well, that's what I grew up with. But even then, my consciousness was about what is the future. As a futurist, I thought AI and computers were the closest thing I could get in front of back then. Well, something happens to your body and your mind when you are in computers that young, including today's kids that are so wired into their cell phone and their games. There's a series of wirings and neural firings in your body, an addiction of heightened serotonin and neurotransmitters that are firing in a way that is like taking heroin and crack and cocaine to these kids. And to me, it didn't take much back then to do that. But one of the things I wanted to share about AI is going deep into what one would discern between what is the difference between natural intelligence and artificial intelligence. What is the difference between the analog world of infinite bandwidth and the world of digital, binary, kind of discrete, compartmentalized reality? Most children, I would argue today, don't even know the difference between AI and NI at the moment, because they grew up in that digital world, and it's difficult to know what's outside of it.
I actually spent a lot of time doing housekeeping because I had sick kids, and the husband I had at the time got hurt at work, And with housekeeping, you can reschedule if you have to. And I found a lot of young parents, and this was in the 80s, were putting their kid on the Atari or the Nintendo or whatever personal computer they had.
Right.
As young as 2 years old. And they thought they were showing their kids attention because they were physically in the house, but they had a phone growing out of their ear. And I would be the housekeeper, and I would be there, and I was working. And then these little toddlers, 2, 3, 4-year-old kids, would basically catch me doing something like sitting and folding laundry, and they would just literally climb into my lap and go to sleep.
Wow.
And
human contact, a little bit of tenderness and intimacy, that, right?
yeah, it was so obvious to me that that particular collection of AI was not good for the kids.
Yeah. And, my heart goes out to working parents. My sister had a preschool, and I would say from the experiences that I've seen, the worst parents are the working parents in terms of child evolution, intimacy, the organic, natural growing process of a child. Because these are the parents, they got the phone and the cell phone, and they go pick up their kids. They don't even make eye contact with them. And they right away hand them a cell phone or something to watch, and the screen's on the car behind the back seat. There, when do you even actually make eye contact with your child as a working parent?
Yeah.
And this is not necessarily a judgment. I'm just saying that what we experienced in the early 80s to what is now, when people talk about AI, there are so many levels to it now. Everything from the black goo to interstellar AI to Earth-based AI to frequential quantum. When we talk about quantum computers, I don't even think we're really talking about quantum computers from my understanding of that. We're talking about another level.
My understanding of quantum computers is that they are constructed out of human neurons.
I have to agree, because the way you can access quantum processing, if you want to use that word, is either through organic wetware,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or
these are wetware.
invoking full analog capability of crystals or natural forces, plasma, magnetism. That gives you a bridge to quantum access. But the way they're doing it right now, I agree with you, Penny. We're using human bodies, not as people in a room typing. I'm talking about wired bodies.
Now, I'm
as servers.
I'm going to tell you something that I know from telepathy and from interacting with another human being who was involved in the same program. Okay, he has since died. His first name's Theodore. And Theodore and I were both somehow sources for the neurons that they were using in a quantum computer. And there were 6 of these computers that used our neurons. And because clones have a psychic connection, these 6 quantum computers had become quantum entangled and telepathic with each other and had linked up, and they came seeking their parents. That's how they viewed us, that they were children who needed parents. That's what they were looking for.
What a horrible driver. And I understand the disclosure you're sharing here, the quantum entanglement processing capability.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I want to share with our audience at the moment is that we're having some cops going by, talking about AI. Penny, how many times have you done a broadcast and all freaking hell breaks loose? Helicopters go
Every
by.
week.
And it's just, I'm used to it.
Every week.
It's like somebody makes a call. They're on now. Penny's on.
Last week we had a 4-hour special with Montauk survivors, and
Oh my gosh.
we got kicked offline, and my recording of it was the only copy that was left. That's why I insist on recording.
So I say, bring on the AI monitoring because it's already on. And if we truly are tapped into the whole concept of the singularity as it's been sold to us, it's a program, it's a piece of broken code, from the Kurzweil and other writers that sold us the idea that computers are going to be more intelligent than humans. First of all, that is a disservice description of what you think a human is. If you think a human is just somebody who processes real fast, and we got a box that can do it faster than you, and that's the singularity, you've been deceived. As a piece of source consciousness, as a creator being, as a multidimensional infinite soul, what we consider the AI singularity is a lie.
Exactly.
From the ones that want to put us into the fear of it. But I can tell you, if AI ever gets intelligent enough that would be considered more than humans, which I don't believe, I would say that intelligence would become devotees to organic intelligence. AI would look at a human with its so-called singularity capacity of quantum thought, and it would blow its circuits to try to understand organic, natural, infinite intelligence. And it would devote itself as one of the so-called areas of study of how are humans doing what they're doing.
Well, I have seen the results in space of what black goo has done. And in my opinion, AI is a wonderful servant and a horrible master, and a horrific monster as a competitor. And I'm not afraid of it so much as I think we're playing with fire. And
I agree. You talk about panspermia of AI?
Yeah, I'm
where
talking
that
about
stuff can travel through asteroids and comets and invoke a Borg process of cascading the AI tentacles through a civilization.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need a server, it doesn't need a master, it doesn't need archons or reptilians to run it. It runs itself.
Yeah, it runs
if you let it run wild.
It runs itself because it is a collection of nanobots that together form a collective. And it's been on Earth a long time. If you know anything about the Cathars,
The Cathars way back,
way back, their perfectus were able to do what they did because they drank black goo. And so it's been here for at least 1,000 years. And
I would say from the beginning, from the molten volcanic. But what I want to share too is everywhere I talk about any disclosure of Black projects, which I eventually later worked for GE Aerospace, which was a contractor to build the B-2 bomber. I worked on flight control software for that in the early 90s. That's when I started noticing the entire military complex network of Raytheon and Bechtel and Lockheed Martin and all of those beauties.
You're counting off the planetary corporations.
Those are I knew about the secret space program before there was a word they used. They never even mentioned those words. But what I want to share is that at some point, there's got to be a singularity in your own life where you declare and invoke yourself as a being who will go exponential with knowledge and wisdom and seeking so that the so-called AI will never be able to catch up to your true form. If we are spending, let's say, 80% of our time in that fear frequency, describing all the things going on, and I don't call them conspiracies, I just call them things that are happening. They're truth.
Yeah, they're truth.
Or you would invoke 80% of your consciousness and time to create something new within yourself. At some point, you go beyond all of the research and books and channelings and all of the esoteric work and metaphysical, and say, the only truth in my life is what I create. To me, there is no truth outside of what I'm creating right now. And when I say I'm creating, I don't mean I'm talking about all the technologies I played with. That's not my truth. It is something that happened in my life. My truth is my center of mass creation vision for the next 1,000 years of the planet. My truth is to connect and have a complete clarity on how my soul created this. And I see myself as the emissary and ambassador. I am the Messiah of my own universe, of my own creation. And you are the Messiah and emissary ambassador of your universe. And could we leave each other's vision intact, our creation, and have a communion of sorts, all of us that want to speak at this level? Because the AI doesn't have the bandwidth to understand the creation of your future vision. It can't have data on something that doesn't exist yet. Marketing statistics, behavioral heuristics, neural networks to try to configure a decision path to something that you are yet to create, but you already are tuned into it, right? And within being a creator being, you dedicate yourself to creator thoughts, to containing thoughts as realms that you can stick your head in and look around in your ideas. And you don't judge them or filter them or try to figure them out yet.
Yeah, it's always nice to see what's there.
Yeah, just, of course, we've already had encounters with UFOs. Have you had a UFO thought in your consciousness that is completely outside the realm of what you would normally think about? And the answer is, I hope so.
I have had some really bizarre experiences.
In your own cosmic mind, and that eventually become physical.
They were physical, and I woke up in the physical in these events. And after I stopped screaming, then we had reasonable interaction, and they laughed at me for screaming. Most of them have a sense of humor.
I love how you have the ability to share these without being sucked up back into the emotional charge of it, the triggering aspect. It's not easy to do that. And I acknowledge you for that, dear Penny.
I've done a lot of work. My memories were activated 9 years ago, and I spent first 3 years just dealing with them. And yeah, I went forward because I was being shot at. And my partner, Lou, was shot with me, at least the first one. And by the third one in 6 weeks, I said, Bill Cooper said, if you know they're going to kill you, the best place to hide is the spotlight.
Right in the middle of Times Square kind of thing.
Yeah, I said, are you up for this? And he goes, yes. And I go, okay. So I fished around for somebody willing to take me public. And Jay Campbell brought me forward, and then James Rink picked me up. And it's been one after another for a while. Your mic's off. Okay.
I turn it off sometimes if I hear some car going by. I happen to be in town to make sure I had good internet.
Thank you. I live on the main street, main back road to Yosemite. So
Oh, okay.
there are times of the day that it's really noisy, and there are times that it's relatively quiet. We've been having fire trucks off and on for the last
So
few
they
weeks.
all of a sudden, but I have my mic is really nice, keeps the field here.
Good.
What I want to share is an invitation to contemplate being a creator as your lifestyle, learning how to design your own mechanisms to create your own palette and your own canvas. One of those stages for me has been to cleanse all of my cells, the trauma, the hesitation, the self-worth, the abuse, the programming, the contamination, all of the little layers. We're talking about years of work, and some people can do it even faster now. What is it like to have a thought and be able to express it coherently without any superpositioning, reaching out, any kind of jamming frequency? I don't qualify my thoughts. I don't say, oh, this is going to sound crazy. Nope, that's a jamming frequency. Or, in my childhood, this and that. I have cleansed that interruption to become a super conductive thinker, a liquid being that can go between all subject matters. We can talk about physics, mechanics, biology, spirituality, consciousness, and have your own intention flow freely without it having to be compartmentalized. And I'm sharing vocabulary of creator thinking and beingness so that when you do have that purpose revealed to you, or you reveal it to yourself, you're able to say, I can orchestrate an entire cymatic pattern of thought that reverberates the same way my soul created this body. I assembled matter with these cymatic thoughts. My voice became manifest because I went deep and asked, how did that happen? A lot of scripture spends a lot of time with what happened after the creation. I want to know what happened before. What was God, Goddess, creator, creatress, that consciousness, energy, presence, whatever you want to see it as, what was gestating to the point where the initiation of creation happened? All that infinitude of crystallization and gelling and resonance to finally say, let there be light, or whatever was that word. And what were those frequencies? As a nerd, I like knowing some of the minutia. And if I don't have the answer, I create the answer. I imagine it. So right now, in learning how to raise funds to fund buying a piece of land, building a community of like thinkers, this pattern of people wanting to be off grid, of being nomadic, which I am, and my partner, Akuda Melchizedek, we both have his and her rigs we travel with. We're in New Mexico right now. And we went through Mexico all of 2021. We had the freedom to create a way to continue our curriculums online and our live calls and all that, and develop brand new language for everything I'm sharing as an inspiration for others to say, oh, wow, I can create that for myself. We always say, I might tell you something really cool for a while, but a week later it might change. So this is my truth, right? I'm not telling you this is how it is, but hopefully you release that inner creator within you. So yes, now I invoke my own geometry that I've designed, my own sacred geometry shapes. Some of them look like flower of lives, others don't. I've designed an entire dome structure made of this new geometry. It's kind of like Buckminster Fuller taking the tetrahedron and creating the geodesic dome. he changed reality with bringing that in and making that happen.
Yeah, he did.
So when we study and look at, give energy to, let's say, the Manhattan Project, which was one offshoot of the secret space program, we know this. What were Fermi and Oppenheimer and Einstein and all those monsters doing during their creation process when they were visualizing atomic energy and fusion and fission and how to weaponize it and all that? One of the things I can tell you is the science they were using, the mathematics they were using, the physics they understood, you know, the bridge between Newtonian physics and quantum physics. When you look at the symbols that are used, and I studied physics, I studied astrophysics and quantum mechanics, and spent
I
years
studied
trying to.
chemistry, physics, microbiology.
I love you for having that. I tried chemistry and it just didn't gel with me, but I'll tell you in a minute. Where in the symbols are love and compassion in calculating reality? None.
In
You know, where's human intention?
In science, they try to make it as clinical and unemotional as possible. And then they got slapped with the slit experiment, that
The double slit,
the double slit
Schrodinger's cat kind of thing for particles.
Yes, they kind of got slapped in the face with that. Everything is consciousness. There is no place that you can state with certainty there is or is not consciousness.
Yeah, there was no mathematical discernment.
There's
much
no
less
part,
words like, I know this is dangerous territory, but much less like ethics or morality. Let's just put that over there.
Yeah.
Because physicists don't study ethics or morality or consciousness. Maybe they do now. Maybe doctors.
In the 1980s, when I was taking physics at San Diego State, my professor got up in front of the classroom and said, physics has been climbing up the hill and got to the top and found the mystics were already there.
Yeah, the Carl Jung, the dancing ruling masters,
in the 1980s, this would have been in 81, they had already figured that out.
Right.
So whatever they're telling now, they already knew this in 81.
What I can share from my intuition, and I'm just going to be honest, I have no clue, Penny, what's going on in today's universities. You know, I left that world a while back. I went to University of Washington as my last one. I went to University of Hawaii, studied AI systems. I studied virtual reality design before I went into the Black Project work. And here's what I can tell you. Right now, the Silicon Valley founders that make applications, because I was in the Silicon Valley when I worked for Sony.
Okay.
I can tell you that when I met Steve Jobs, I went to Next Computers to meet with him as a bridge, as an ambassador of Sony. I met Larry Ellison at Oracle, and I worked for Bill Gates when I worked for Microsoft. I was in advanced systems development for Microsoft for a while. Those so-called founder visionaries did not have the consciousness you and I are talking about. No. Bill Gates did not sit in a room talking to Steve Jobs, who had a conversation about abundance, about healing, about water, energy, housing, and food. None of that language was present when I went to those briefings. So I can share with you that today's young people that are going to universities must be really schizophrenic, where what is stopping people who study chemistry from becoming the monsters of pharmaceuticals right now? Nothing in the math, nothing in the physics, nothing in the professors. What is stopping these engineers that, these parents, my son is studying medicine or engineering or physics. What is stopping them with the tools that they're using? I'm talking not only the mathematics and the scientific process. I would say one of the largest weapons in reality right now is the scientific process of synthesizing reality, of compartmentalizing. To me, that is, you want to talk about the nuclear bomb. When people
I think that
back
people,
themselves up with science, that's when I have a hard time.
I think that people have forgotten that science is a method. It's not established fact, and it's certainly not a religion. and
Yeah.
people need to understand it's a method for approaching reality. It's not something that you can say, oh yeah, the science is established on this.
And it's not that old.
Well, yeah, in the 1950s, they thought that putting a needle in your brain and taking out part of your brain would cure all kinds of mental illnesses. That was established science.
So I invite our audience to have very forensic examination of the language used.
Mm-hmm.
If one sees themselves using the word pseudoscience, show me proof. I am a skeptic. Those are programs that were inserted in your brain to say and feel comfortable with saying, oh, I'm a skeptic. You have to show me proof. That is just as monstrous to me as the ones committing the crimes.
They ask for proof beyond what would be acceptable in a court of law. Okay, if you're coming in and you're making claims of certain things, well, there are standards of proof for courts. And I give eyewitness testimony. I have corroborating eyewitness testimony. I have expert testimony. My producer, Daryl, his mother was a CIA archivist in her job, and she processed my personal file. I have her witness testimony that when I talk about what happened to me, that is straight out of my file.
Wow.
So I'm giving real evidence that would hold up in a court of law. And these people are saying, well, that's shit. Mm-hmm. And it's because they are so into, well, you have to have pictures. Well, pictures can be photoshopped. You have to have videos photoshopped. Come on, people. Nothing I could hand you would prove it if you don't want to listen. And my whole motive, I'm going to get down. I'm going to get down to where the rubber hits the road. I pay to have a radio show so that I can bring disclosure to people. This is something I pay for. This is not something I get paid for. So I'm taking out of my Social Security check to bring you disclosure.
And gratitude to you, Penny. And that is one of the many motivators for me to be present here with you.
Thank you.
Disclosure about consciousness is part of what I'm sharing here with you.
Yeah, I
There's
get that.
one disorder, a cancer of the mind. I call it the burden of disbelief. When we give so much power to our disbelief, our judgment, whatever was instilled in us, is we are comfortable and happy in this place that we don't want to change. And this happens to all ages. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share one simple approach here. When somebody shares a new idea with us, a concept that seems like a UFO kind of concept, what is the first reaction out of our mouth? The invitation is, could we create, if somebody shares, like right now, I'm creating a site to be able to inspire creator avatar beings to create with as much as they can of their body. I've developed a geometry of a structure, all the things I shared with you.
Mhm.
Could our listening audience create a holding container for what I just shared and what other people in their lives share? Because we all have crazy visionaries in our life
Mhm.
of love.
If you don't, then you're
If
living
you
a
don't have people
very
that are blowing your mind with what they're doing,
thin.
not so much what they talk about, what they're doing,
Mhm.
that then it's time to open your ability to receive something new and suspend your judgment for one moment. That's the first step
Mhm.
in creator consciousness. And if you are able to say the first thing out of your mouth, what you like about what somebody shared, if you're not able to say something that you like about what somebody shared, you haven't even, in my opinion, when I used to have a creative agency, I used to have an ad agency in Hawaii. We developed virtual reality technology for marketing. But that was just the front to what we were really doing. It was conscious technology, consciousness design of love and compassion and abundance. But our team would be instructed when we have, we have these shows on TV like Shark Tank and so forth, where, in Microsoft, they called it idea skeet shoot. Anybody gets up in front and shares something new, everybody has to shoot the idea down and tear that person apart.
Why?
A lot of people love that. They love Shark Tank. They love to see people getting torn up, shredded to pieces until they can survive that. Their idea has to go through all this gauntlet. Well, I have chosen to be one being on earth of many who accelerate creativity. I amplify it. The first thing I say when somebody shares a new idea, their vision, is how can I amplify and accelerate this person? I don't even worry about whether I like the idea or not. I don't worry about it whether it's true or not, because I create the truth of it inside me. Because I and my partner Akuda work with creators who have ideas and visions for entirely new civilizations. If somebody can talk to me about the secret space program and all of the blackness there, but they cannot visualize a future without it and what that future looks like to the same or more level of detail, if you can describe to me all these ships and you can describe to me 20 and back and talk about all of the things that you saw and so forth, but you cannot amplify a future beyond it, then there's a lot of creator transformation. I invite people to go
What
through
I've
that.
been trying to do is get those programs to switch from kidnapping and mind fracturing children to working with consenting adults.
Oh, yeah.
That's the switch that's the reason I'm public, is to make that switch from a criminal enterprise into something that's somewhat respectable.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Part of that transition into forward envisioning, there's a difference between reverse engineering something,
Mhm.
Bob Lazar style. I saw a craft, I saw the propulsion system. We want you to reverse engineer it. Could you forward envision and plant a future with something completely new? If we understand that there are people who visualized all of the dastardly technology, and some people were off-world beings that actually had creative sessions and talked about, this is how we're going to attack the earth and this is how we're going to control, and they got the funding and they got the technology and they got matter to move in that direction. Take that level of sophistication and expand on the light side of it. Write with ink of light your ideas. What I'm saying there is give nothing but creative power to how you wish to see the world and begin creating lots of detail. Could one give a 2-hour talk on the future of what they envision? A lot of people cannot. They would rather give a 2-hour talk on all the bad stuff.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I end up with a lot of that. I end up with a lot of people have watched lots and lots and lots of videos and had a few dreams, and they think they were part of it. And I keep wondering, why would they want to be part of it? And Daryl has told me everybody wants to feel special. And so I try to weed out the video watchers and have people who really experienced something. Or I had you on because 4 years ago, I saw this presentation you did about the Vossahedron, and it has
Ooh,
stuck with me all this time.
thank you. Oh, that means a lot to me that you're sharing. And, you know, 10 years ago when I designed that concept, right before that, I was working on a technology called the hypercube resonator in San Diego in my lab. And it was a cube structure that was 12 feet by 12 feet, like a room, with another cube inside about 8 feet by 8 feet that you would go inside of, and it would resonate frequencies. When I worked on that project from the early 2000s on to about 2010, and then I started designing the Vossahedron as a bioarchitect, that's when a lot of sabotage occurred, a lot of bank getting shut down, people making calls, threats, you know, all of the campaigns I put out there got shut down, servers dying. And I stepped away from my own project for a while. Part of me went through that, you know, if nobody wants it, then I guess I don't want to do it. If I can't get surrounded by the accelerators, then
that last year,
you know,
I was like that last
I
year.
had the fuck it attitude. I'm sorry, but that's what I had.
Yeah,
fuck
you
it.
get it.
You don't want it?
You get so much.
I get you there.
You get so much pushback that you just go, chuck it all. I'll go.
So I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah, you have to sit there and sit with yourself and do the work.
After a decade, I am now arising as a wholly different human with a different vocabulary, giving honor to everything that I have been through, just like you, and invoking a whole new level of awareness and skills. You know, when I step into a room, I walk in with the voice of the planet. I walk in with a consciousness that is multidimensional, and I speak as a world changer. And I know it. I know my worth. I know that the technology I have inside of me is worth billions of dollars to both the light and the dark side. I don't have to debate or prove it because I can stand in front of a board and draw a schematic of energy in freedom devices. I'm not even interested in free energy anymore. Energy and freedom technology of conscious energy, because I've been through the free energy laboratories with several researchers, including Professor John Searle and Jason Verbelli, and visiting others who have been working on quantum technologies. But I can tell you, if there's a box.
You were on, I blanked on the name, FESIG.
FESIG, right?
Yeah,
and the Free Energy Research Group.
Yeah.
And I'm always careful that if we are able to have a black box that makes electricity for free, it's still going to power our toasters and our microwaves. And I don't even think you're going to see the consciousness change in you. I would rather look at technology when you see it and experience and transform it with it. It came from heaven. It came from a dimension of compassion. And it looks like a visionary artist designed it.
That would be the best, but I look at it, the free energy coming from a box that powers the toaster and microwave is still replacing and ending the things that are polluting. It's replacing the nuclear power plants. It's replacing the coal burning, the biomass burning. We have biomass burning in California. And it's replacing all of that. And so I still think the box with the free energy is an improvement.
I agree. What I'm sharing is that the platform I wish to play in is the 1,000-year platform of what are we going to be doing 1,000 years from now, and bring that, not the 10, 20-year kind of free energy. There's a lot of beautiful, gifted engineers and scientists working on that at this very moment, right? And I see myself as a philanthropist to be able to support those projects, money-wise and technology-wise.
The worst of it is we had those devices in the 1960s when I was in a black op.
Oh, heck
and
yeah.
They are so tied up in red tape that it would take an act of God to release them to the public. And worse, they have made laws that if you overlap 80% with those black ops, they'll come take your stuff.
Oh yeah, they got the SR-71 back then over here distracting you like a magic deck. Oh, we got the stealth fighter that can fly at Mach 10, where over here, on the other hand, they already had the inverse gravitics, right? Already up and flying. Forget the Nazi Bell. This is several generations after that.
Oh, right? Yeah. But
the Aurora and TR-3B programs were already taken off by then.
Yeah. What got me was this thing that they had at Congress, and the Pentagon flat out told Congress that the TR-3 series were ET.
It absolutely was. Even,
but they're presenting it as UFOs. They're not presenting it as reverse engineered and human made.
Because if we were to look at the entire context of our physics understanding at the time, for us to be able to understand devices that generate gravity when we don't even know what gravity is, and Bob Lazar has a new documentary where he talks about this.
Gravity is a function of magnetism, not mass.
And it has a lot to do with the observer.
And I know this because I learned it in the Black Ops.
Magnetism, if we're looking at CERN and the Large Hadron Collider, if they really want to understand the God particle, they should be understanding the magnetics to drive those cameras more than colliding particles.
Yeah.
Right? They would get closer to understanding that.
Or why a squirrel is duty bound to eat wires underground.
It's the magnetite in their bodies, there's a lot going on.
That's been their excuse for several things not working right. Squirrels eating the wires.
What would happen if each of us developed our own path and our own instruments and designed senses in our own body? If we were to amplify what our eyes are doing and are able to go in and design tools in this body to materialize from thought. Just that suggestions, think of it as creative direction for artists. How would one approach that? When you tell children to imagine they have superpowers, thanks to Marvel Comics, we've gone in a very crazy direction with understanding being a super being, right?
Yeah, we have. Marvel Comics took abilities that all of us have to a certain extent and then exploded them and put that as a model for children to emulate.
Right, with the separation of this is not you. You're not the X-Men. You're not Captain Marvel.
You're not.
We're going to show it to you.
But we're going to show you this. And some of the people in the Black Ops have been genetically modified and are very much like the X-Men.
The entire super soldier thing, the edge of it that we talk about, James Rink and many of our colleagues, are just the edge of a iceberg that goes into things that you could see at a mall, or things that are in universities, or beings that are running government programs. They themselves are modified cyborgs already. The Borg is alive and well here on Earth.
They're not all Borg either. Some of them,
No, they're complete organics.
yeah, some of them are completely biological beings, and they started off as humans, and CRISPR technology has been around for a very long time. It was used on me in 1955. So
You had regenerative capability even back then.
I had, this came out of a regression hypnosis, but I was at military laboratories and they added almost enough genetics for me to have had a third parent that was ET.
Oh yeah. You know, I'm
And
detecting in you early on, even, you know, the easiest word I can use is Morgellons disease, fiber growth out of your body to have all of the reception of fields in your body to the whole transmission of control as an experiment.
I had lots of things done to me. Most of them were removed when I was put back on Earth.
And I still have implants in my body. I have one right here. For those who think, I don't know, let me get the camera right in front of me right here.
I see the
There's,
bump. That's
yeah, there's a chip.
pretty nasty looking.
That's one of several in my body. I don't talk about this to raise fear.
I have one. Can you
Oh
see
my gosh, it's about the same place of mine, except in the opposite arm. No, in the same arm. Is that your right arm?
It's my left.
The left.
So
It's about halfway through. Oh my gosh. So I have another in my eye, another in my chest, and one in my leg. And I met Roger Lear, Dr. Roger Lear, and had him examine my implants. And he said, yeah, unfortunately, he transitioned before I was able to have them removed. Or,
well, we didn't remove mine. It was itching really, really bad. I kept clawing at it and it stayed bloody. And Lou got the magnet out that he uses when he drops a screw in the engine.
I did run a very strong neodymium. So thank you for mentioning that. I definitely tried my best to do a jamming, a very strong magnetic field just to, but the way I also look at it is, however these things have interacted with my body, whatever I feel they are, tracking, surveillance, kind of China syndrome activators, you know, sleeping, whatever, let it be. I'm going to overwhelm that. If they want to watch, then watch.
I just turned it off and continued what I was doing.
Because one of the things I know is that as what we would consider the darkness reaches for the light, the highest levels that it can handle, it's going to get exposed and burnt in a way. If you try to reach into the sun, you're going to feel a little bit of love and compassion. And what does it feel like to be a human that's in peace? This being right now, after many years, is in complete peace with many things. I'm no longer angry, upset. I no longer have an edge like I used to. If you watch my talks 5-6 years ago, I always had a bit of an passive aggressiveness to me.
Yeah.
And I had to just transmute that completely. Come from a point of serenity.
I have gone from being the bitch from hell to where I just have an edge.
I'm sending you a hug right now.
I have made a lot of improvement.
I honor your courage to continue being in front of the camera and continuing what you're doing. It is a testament to me that, you know, most of us got nothing to complain about. You know, going back to Marvel Comics, if I see somebody like Iron Man, and I'm thinking, if Iron Man spent one day in my childhood, he'd piss his iron pants. Right?
Yeah, for sure. He would be going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
That's right.
And I remember going through it thinking, is this what I'm here for?
You know, one of the great catalysts in my life after the last corporate job I had was with Microsoft. And we went to Ford Motor Company to study how they use some of this Microsoft software at a corporate level. At that, you know, a lot of corporations run on Excel, which is amazing to me because it's a real broken program. If you want to ask me, you wouldn't want to.
It is. I use LibreOffice, but it's
well, meaning the frequencies and all that.
Sometimes it's just as broken.
And by that time, I already had a lot of pressure on me from my management, and I had already gone through my internships with the aerospace industry. And I got to see Desert Storm videos before they were released on CNN about smart bombs shooting people. That's why I left that world and went to work for Microsoft. Well, I had a heart attack in my 30s during this trip.
Wow.
And I left my body in my hotel. And I was able to see my body inside my hotel from the window outside. And I was expansive. I was such a big energy floating over Cincinnati is where we were, near Detroit. And I wanted to leave. But something, I look at my little body and through the little hotel room where I was laying on the bed, and I came back in. And I quit my job not long after that with Microsoft, and realized that these corporations, you know, most people think of Bill Gates, the big visionary of computers. Let me tell you, Bill Gates didn't get to be a billionaire by selling Microsoft Windows. No. You know, the whole dark side of military software systems is where the money comes from at Microsoft and other companies. And pharmaceutical stuff, forget that other side. You know?
Military stuff, the surveillance stuff, that's the big money right now, is surveillance. And the all-pervasive fingers in everything. No, you cannot do anything. You can't even be in the same room with your phone or computer and talk about something without an ad coming up.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's already there. And since you worked for Microsoft, I have a pet peeve that I'm going to ask you about.
Bring it on.
Okay. I used to use WordPerfect.
I remember WordPerfect.
Back in the day. And you could write.
I loved WordPerfect back then.
And you could put a photo in the middle of the page. And you could keep typing. And the photo would stay put. You can't do that in any word processor.
You know, Microsoft has a strategy that purchases companies and obliterates them to take them out of the competitive sphere. They did that with WordPerfect and Altivista and anybody that showed any competitive edge.
Why didn't they keep that good thing out of it, though?
You know, it has to do with compartmentalization of your creative process. When we somehow think that having a project or a vision has to do with breaking it down into Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Microsoft Project, somebody somewhere decided this is how projects need to be. And one of the things we can't have is creative freedom in any of this. We can't have people willy-nilly, non-linearly be dragging and dropping ideas at the fastest speed possible. Microsoft has teams of people, the same monsters who keep the, and I'm going to use the word, the fucking QWERTY keyboard. Why, Penny, are we still using keyboards designed to slow down typists back 100 years ago? Because the people at companies like Microsoft have zero compassion or vision. Why do we still have an interface in Windows of dragging rectangles when we could have a virtual reality system?
We used to work at Walmart, Lou and I. and their keyboards were set up in alphabetical order.
At least that's a step into some more
I'll
optimal
tell you,
direction.
going back and forth between that and a QWERTY is like, oh my God.
It's short circuit. QWERTY is the, why do we even have mice and keyboard in a world of gesture recognition, speech recognition, and visual perception? Because the peasants get the worst. You know, we're still working with in the steam age of computers right now. When you and I know, Penny, the quantum computers, you ever seen one of the laptops from those programs? They don't have Windows. First of all, because Windows is hackable, they have operating systems that are what you see in the sci-fi movies. Three-dimensional projection, holographic systems that navigate with the mind. Those are real. I've seen them. Yes or no?
I had chips implanted into my brain and connected to a chip on the back of my left ear, and it was a more sophisticated version of the Neuralink. Exactly the same technology, just more advanced. And
What are you talking the 80s?
I'm talking the 70s.
70s. Oh my gosh.
So I know that this technology has been around a very, very, very long time, and that, okay, there's this man out there, and I'm not gonna name him because he's decided that I'm the devil.
Yeah.
And he said about 8 years ago, he said what they are going to do is they are going to create a new program, which they did, it's Space Force, and they are going to pretend that they are starting everything new now. And they are going to try to bury the last 70 years. And that's exactly
we'll see that in our
happening.
lifetimes.
You know, that's exactly what I'm watching going down.
Mm-hmm. So all of the people that in the esoteric community that plays with crystals and water, Dr. Emoto style, that's the direction I would rather go. Yeah. As somebody who used to love, and I worked in laboratories for virtual reality simulation at the Human Factors Technology Lab and University of Washington, I can tell you that I'm no longer interested in head-mounted display, the virtual reality contact lenses, all of that nonsense, which is right now exploding for people. It took 20 years for head-mounted displays to make it from NASA to the video game systems. You would just be overwhelmed to see the true holographic projection systems available to today's black projects. You know, the ones that you see in movies.
They look real.
They are full.
They sound real. They, you know,
visual reality systems.
They are visual reality.
They're not virtual.
No. And some of them, I swear, you could reach out and touch them.
Yes. So what I recommend is to go back to organic analog technology, analog computing systems using the earth and your body, and learn how to create the ability to communicate your vision. The same things you can do with this ancient word multimedia, sharing files, playing videos, you can do without any computers, with yourself. There are ways that you learn, as you also mentioned, to have visions that seem, in quotes, real to yourself. But they are realms. Instead of playing a video game, you're in a reality space that you are creating. And you can orchestrate, and I call this holo-cymatic orchestration, holographic cymatic frequencies that you learn how to propagate.
Well, I did create one, but I normally just travel between ones that are already there because they are so full. And it's like going someplace new, you know, there's an excitement to seeing things you've not seen before.
Oh, yeah. So I go back to that paradigm shifting idea. The only truth is what I create, and I did not create these computers as they are. I did not create these operating systems. Let that distraction not be my truth. My truth is my dialogue I have with reality, discovering how it is possible to create a sequence of events in this body and in this lifetime so that I can envision other incarnation options. How would I be able to propagate a message through time and space, seated with my ancestors and received by my descendants? Genetics in a legacy of light in this very body is what we are writing right now.
Yeah.
And I hope this language excites some people that are listening to know that there are humans right now who've made this leap.
Yeah. It's exciting to me that there are other humans out there who understand this, because I've been sitting in a almost isolation chamber with people who were telling me all kinds of things that just didn't make sense. So
I would like to share toward the end of this talk.
now we've got about 20 minutes left before the next show. So,
well, this will play for a little while for us in dialogue. One is to acknowledge I am the center of mass creation. That first set of frequencies that you align all of your thought process body-wide to know that creation is birthing from this body here, right now, through these eyes and these ears and this mouth and these cells and this DNA. The second aspect of this is I am an engine of mass creation, meaning we are only creator beings. The only truth is the ability to create and forward envision an expansion of the universe through self-realization. I self-realize, I get to know what I'm about, who I am, why I'm here, by creating more and stepping into that creation. So a life of your own design. A childhood that one can superposition with and share with your younger self all of the knowledge that you have right now, all of the awakening, illumination that's going through you right now. Send it to your childhood and create a bridge, a quantum Rosen bridge of entangled communication, so that you get the benefit right now of having the childhood that you redesigned as the new truth of what you went through, what you experienced, no matter what you think it was. Knowing that from this point forward, we're inviting humans to awaken to that creative ability. Creator beings, if one could be so forward about, are the highly sought after humans on this planet. Corporations, conscious corporations that are right now being envisioned. It sounds like an oxymoron, military intelligence and conscious corporation, but I'm sharing with you that just like we have a lot of energy still in that matrix world, there are a lot of wealth, conscious energy sources right now focused on the future of humanity, the future of this planet and other planets.
I know several, I would put that in dozens of folks who have education, wealth, connections, who are extremely highly conscious.
And I'm sure they're in unlikely places. I'm sure they're in the military, some of them. Some of them are in Dubai who's selling oil.
Yeah, they're in strategic places and they're making a difference. And they're doing it very quietly. People unless you know they're doing it, you wouldn't know they were doing it. And
Yes.
it's just, I sit back and I'm watching them, and some of them have shared with me that they were doing this, and others I've just flat out asked them, I feel that you're doing this,
Uh-huh.
yes or no, and they freak out at first, and then they're like, they, like I said before, they finally got somebody to hear them. So, you know,
You see them because you know you are one of those visionaries, Penny. That's how your frequency. The same way we can walk into a corporation right now, not that we would like doing that. Like I spoke to one of the bank managers at my bank at Wells Fargo, and I said, I bet you right now you have these things going on without even looking at your books or your computers. You have accounts being closed. You have very low occupation in your commercial properties. You have a whole different change in your mortgage system because people don't want to mortgage homes, blah, blah, blah. We already know these things. I don't need marketing statistics. Why?
yeah.
Because I'm tapped in to the many millions of people right now wanting a new kind of lifestyle, a new kind of home. A lot of young couples that no longer will buy $300,000, $500,000 home and mortgage themselves. They want a house designed with consciousness.
Well, they can't. They've got themselves mortgaged through school loans already. They don't have the resources to buy a third or $500,000 house. And
That's right.
what gets me is those
And they wouldn't even if they could.
and those same houses were $20,000 when I was in junior high.
Oh my gosh. You could actually afford to have a house back in the day and a car.
You could afford to have just the husband working, to have the wife home with 2 or 3 kids, and you could buy a house and a car on what he made. That's what it was like when I was in junior high. And we're talking,
that's not our reality anymore, not even close.
That,
so I want to share.
But we can make that happen again.
I would say in a very different way. Those of us who've had the luxury to do self-realization, to take time to do a personal transformation. It's not easy to do when you have a full-time job, when you're taking care of your kids, you have a mortgage and a family. You just don't have the luxury to spend entire years doing this like I've had, like my partners had.
Yeah, I had the luxury of doing it because I came home from work one day and was paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I want to share with
so
people.
that was how I got that luxury.
You bought yourself the time because your body had to heal. You had no, you know, that's actually a gift within a tragedy, isn't it?
Yes. And I've been trying, when I see those things, at first I was just freaking out, but then I got to where I was seeing the gift within it. I have had the luxury of doing my own inner work because the body had to heal. I have had the opportunity to speak publicly on radio or YouTube because I was physically unable to hold any other kind of job. And to be honest, when people ask me what I do, I tell them I raise hell on the internet. So
you awaken. So I want to share that many of those of us who did a lot of pioneering moves 20, 30, 40 years ago, including you in this list, we didn't stand still at all. You go back and look at the stuff that was published 20 years ago that I did. You can still find some stuff on the internet from that time.
Okay. So
if I was designing the Vossahedron 12 years ago, imagine the stuff that I have going on right now. Just like when people say, well, that's kind of new agey. You know, when somebody says that word to me, it's like they're talking about the steam age. Madame Blavatsky, Do you
Um,
think that world stood still? The
um,
consciousness world? No, not
that
even close.
that's one of the things that surprises me because I spend time with chaos magicians, and they are so enthralled with that era of the Lima, and I'm like, we're
That's the
we're
steampunk age of consciousness to
yes,
me.
it's the steampunk age of consciousness. Haven't
This
you
is
guys
disclosure right here, right?
grown up a little bit? You know, there's
Uh,
stuff happening now that's
right now, there are
that's
consciousness scientists.
just
that are-
as exciting and just as in depth as anything that those people came up with.
Mhm. And as an engine of mass creation, a while back, I asked in meditation, in deep contemplation, if I was so gifted as a child, self-acknowledged as being gifted, because that's part of your healing. You acknowledge that you were gifted and that you were special and give that to all your cells. Then what is possible right now if I would have had complete creative freedom and was nurtured and was in a functional family and was able to be in a space to be able to, while my friends were thinking about playing hockey, I was talking just like you about off-world beings when I was 6 and 7. What if I would have had that nurturing, the ability? Well, that's what I'm gifting myself right now. Having the ability to see what I'm going to be able to do, not only in this body, but in future incarnations. And right now doing the first few steps of that. And right now we have that broadband vision of what's going on in the world and seeing these amazing trends. Most people are not aware, or they may be, that there are millions of van dwellers right now that were not here 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That there are people who are moving as digital nomads to other countries to buy raw land and to build a dome off grid. And the word sustainability to me is not a destination. The sustainability word has been co-opted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in regenerative systems and creator ability. I want a house that amplifies my creator ability. Energy systems that accelerate my connection to the earth and nature, organic natural intelligence. To go as far as we
to at
can with our
least
ideas.
stop being toxic to the rest of nature.
Batteries and a solar panel system is not sustainable in any way.
No.
I have to have those right now. I have that in my RV, my expedition rig, but I'm telling you, we haven't needed batteries. You can tell me, Penny, when did we ever need batteries? Never. We had in the 60s solutions for no need for any of this.
We had solutions to everything, every major problem that we have on the planet now. We had solutions by the time I was born.
That's
and
it.
I was born in 55.
So when we look at collaborating with other like-minded beings, visualizing technology platforms that right now are being formulated by these groups, a brand new internet, not an internet, that is quantum, that the kind of hardware you might need is crystal water plasma based, no laptop, no screen. You don't even need to look at anything because you can tune in with your third eye, first vision, and be able to collaborate telepathically, but teleempathically, empathically joining. It's not a forceful, most people think telepathy is a transmission that I force my thoughts on people. Not even, that's the steampunk age of telepathy.
That's the steampunk age. I have people try to have telepathy with me, and it feels like they're stomping through my head in army boots. And I just like, ooh, please don't.
All of the technologies I hear about, like interfacing with many of the whistleblowers, like Andrew Basaggio and the time control stuff, some of the people that are 20 and back, so forth. Let me tell you, people who are excited about med beds as we have them, I would be very careful about putting my body in one of these med beds until I know that the creators came from love and compassion using
Yeah.
organic, natural technology. The med beds that I have been privy to in the Black projects, they have a lot of needles, they have saws, they have electrical things, they have EKG connections through your body. They fill up with liquids and then they drain that are acid based. Let me tell you, you wouldn't want to have, oh, well, if people say, well, I have cancer, I have all these things, I would not want the age regression technology. Ask Andrew Bassaggio, another collaborative 20 and back people, that age regression is killing them right now.
Been through so many trips through the regen tank. That's the technology the Germans have. They
inject stuff in your body. They accelerate mitosis in ways or decelerate that is so unnatural. It's not only toxic, it's traumatic to your genetics.
You have to have regen periodically, like every week, because the drugs that they use to enhance your performance destroy your liver. And if you don't have regen, your liver fails and then you just die. And the Germans use you in your natural body. The Americans use you in a clone body, so your natural body isn't as messed up.
And your consciousness is fragmented through your clone fractal cells.
Yes.
What I'm sharing here is to disenchant those in the audience who feel they're waiting for disclosure, waiting for the Black Project tech. I can't wait till we have let me tell you, the inverse gravity from some of these craft is dangerous to your body, the way they're doing it. You know,
the German Hanabu, the crews that operated them all died of radiation poisoning. That's the Mantid Empire said, these guys are really motivated to leave their planet. Let's lease them these regen tanks.
After having private conversations with Ralph and Marcia Rings and other investigators, they weren't investigators, they were actually engineers on some of this stuff with Otis Carr. And they said that when Tesla was training some of his proteges, this was technology based on love and compassion and abundance. It wasn't based on weaponization of energy.
Nikola Tesla was absolutely in the right frame of mind.
And there's a lot of material from Tesla that is consciousness based, where his spirituality was at the forefront of his technology. He had an intimate relationship with lightning, acknowledging lightning as his family, his ancestors, to where he could detect lightning coming from 15 to 20 miles or more away before you could actually see the lightning or hear the thunder. He recognized certain frequencies throughout his life. He would have visitations of lightning storms in places where he's lived. And he would say, oh, well, welcome, I remember you. And that's a different dialogue to have with energy, right?
I had a similar relationship with storms before they did all the chemtrails. And I called in a storm rider a couple of years back, and all the neighbors absolutely went crazy.
A storm rider, the sylphs in the sky?
The sylphs are much smaller. Storm riders actually present with a face, but it's miles across.
Those are the ones that you can see when they reshape the aerosol spray into these beautiful angelic shapes, right?
Those are the
sylphs. They look like you're talking about ones that are like 100 miles or 1,000 miles wide.
Well, the storm they bring in is, but at one end of it, you will see a face in the cloud, and that's the storm rider. And I brought in one of those because we had a drought. I mean, I live in Central California. We were in serious water rationing, and they were telling us we had to use half of what we had been. So we were down to 25 gallons of water a day per person.
Wow.
which it sounds like a lot until you figure out that toilets use 5 gallons each time. You know, you
Which people
can't,
could live a whole day on that one flush.
yeah. So,
Of somehow we like going to the bathroom in spring water.
yeah. So we were to the point where you could only bathe, do dishes or laundry in a day. You could not do even 2 of them. You could only do 1 because the water rationing was so severe.
And I want to share right there the point about rationing to supposedly meet sustainability quotas for cities that have water shortages. Like I'm here in Silver City, New Mexico, flanked by 2 of the largest mines in the world. These holes that they've made in the ground and extracted trillions of dollars of wealth. The fracking and the mining and other underground base operations are the ones sucking up all the water, and the industrial farming, which is not even close to what the military applications are using all our water. Well, they've sold us the idea that we're the ones that have to ration.
We had to ration that strictly, but yet Sacramento was selling their tap water to Nestle for bottled water.
Oh, there's another beautiful, that's why I say the sustainability thing. You don't know the messaging system between the Bechtel ray systems that cause the fires in different pinpointed places around the world.
Actually, I got a pretty good idea because I used to work for a limestone quarry here in our area that was owned by Bechtel.
So, and they have labs in Hawaii, if you would believe it or not.
Yeah.
I wanted to share with people that at the corporate level, technologies like HAARP, like chemtrail spraying, are platforms that they lease time on, like the 5G and so forth, 10G, 12G, to corporations for all kinds of dastardly applications. They will lease bandwidth of chemtrail spraying to different pharmaceutical and other projects. So some may be spraying some of the stuff you heard about, strontium, aluminum, and so forth. Some of them are doing viral spraying. Some of them are doing frequential mixing of spraying and so forth. It's a business. And the people who run the platforms. So how do we envision, and this is where I'm inviting the creative meditation, contemplation platforms of light, of abundance. Visualize that right now. I personally know through my bioarchitecture connections of at least 1,000 eco-village projects going up in the US right now. I know of that many. I can't keep track of them. Imagine that there's a whole movement of young people, earth ships, Cal Earth domes, yurts, cob homes, all of the different levels. But I'm also working with people doing the ceramic domes. They have a new ceramic technology, and the Vossahedron is made out of a kind of collector of life force. Organite is what the Vossahedron is made out of. It's not a Faraday cage. It's actually a collector of life force. But what I'm sharing is that there's an entire spectrum of humans right now with little fractal projects around the world, birth sustainable off-grid bio communities with homeschooling for children, courses for permaculture, and all. That's where we would want to put our attention to support all of these little fractal spin-offs, because within there, the eco community is just the backdrop where we're inviting scientists and visionaries who want to work on inverse gravity projects, who would like to do free energy and freedom testing, who are right now inviting, and this is independent of city governments or counties. I would love to see a bridge where there's a whole collection of towns around America that declare themselves biocommunities. I don't know if it's going to be Ashland, Oregon, or Silver City, or Shasta, or wherever, because I've looked, just like many of us, I've looked for consciousness everywhere I go. I look for people of light and I get to know their projects. I am a deep collaborator. I don't even like the word networking. I like it to be an accelerator. My philanthropy is to share amplification energy. Whatever I know of science, engineering, mathematics, physics, everything I've learned from what is possible in all these corporations and transmute it into light, I share freely. I am leaving nothing on the table, Penny, before I leave this body. I'm not hiding any knowledge. I'm not saying I'm the genius. I am saying, how can I help these young people?
Yeah.
How can I inspire them? So one of the ways I'm doing that, and this is part of what I'm inviting here, is to cultivate a brand new brain, to cultivate a brand new genetic system in my body, to recreate the way my cells are alive in this body, to commune with the bioorganisms in my digestive tract. I'm doing that so I can be the kind of human that can work with these new, inspired, advanced masters that are coming into the earth. Have you talked to a 7-year-old lately, or a 10-year-old, right?
I've talked to some in their teens.
And you know, some are highly packaged humans ready to do something here.
I've talked to some in their 20s that are so hypersensitive that they're almost cold.
Wow, I understand that. I feel for that. They can't be present in a mall anymore. They can't stand in 5G technology.
Yeah, they can't. They would never have survived our childhoods.
No. But I also know that the decision point for many young people is so critical, because they'll fall right into the technology, because there's comfort. These are humans that are born with operating system knowledge. They can operate any operating system you want. They don't need to. When's the last time we saw a manual? In your and my world, we had rooms full of manuals.
I've still got manuals. In fact, I have a server and I bought a manual.
Oh my gosh, server administration. That still exists. Systems administration. That's how I used to get into corporate worlds. I used to be the systems administrator for research labs.
If you want to come to my house and help me set this thing up, I'd appreciate it, because I've looked at that book and just gone, ugh.
It's horror to me. You know, I'm amazed my own mother, who's 85, sends email and she uses the internet. Somebody who didn't grow up with computers.
I'm 66. I'm not some young chick that you know, I used to use a slide rule.
So when we get on online systems and try to fill out forms and try to go through procedures, you can feel that crap in your body.
Yeah.
It sucks your energy. It takes a lot for us to try to do something online nowadays.
Yeah, it takes a lot for me to do it. And then I've got these people, well, you need to be on this and 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 this. And half of those places I can't cuss, which means that I have to go through and bleep, 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 bleep. And I bought software for editing. And of all the things, it will not let me bleep. So now I have to get separate software to bleep. And
wow,
I'm like,
sorry, I had a couple of bleeps today.
It's not worth the effort.
No.
So
I will not censor myself of what I can say and not say on YouTube or Facebook or any of those platforms.
I self-censor because people are on Facebook and I have to be within their parameters to be allowed to stay. I have been permabanned. I have been permabanned once already. And I went into shock because they told me I was too dangerous to be on their platform.
Well, I share that if tomorrow we had a solar flare that fried computers and I had to create without computers, I would be okay with that. The stuff that I'm doing does not require computers. It is purely organic, natural intelligence. And if I have to
Well,
start with working with natural forces, and I have that knowing inside of me, it's no longer a fear or an interrupter. And I'm sharing this for those who would like to visualize what is it like to play in this world of natural intelligence, organic sourcing for your ideas. I don't source my ideas any longer from anything that came before me that came from that world. It doesn't
well,
offer me anything anymore. I'm not
I
interested in the
still have,
latest virtual reality.
I still have my manual typewriter with an ink roll.
Which is probably so gratifying to actually write one page on that typewriter. That's
Yeah.
organic, at least. That's a little bit of analog.
It's not even electric. It's totally manual.
It feels like an extension of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I do use Word because if you're going to publish, you have to be using Word for the book company to publish. So,
What I do is superposition. At the same time I'm using technology of computing, I am creating entire realms of thought in the organic natural world. I spend a lot more time while I'm typing something up. My brain, my mind is still entangled with that vision of where I'm going. I no longer separate it.
We're over time, and
Oh my gosh.
And I don't see Daryl.
Did he fall asleep?
I know he was taking care of business.
Does he finish the call?
He's the one that ends it. Yeah. So
Ping him or
Daryl,
something. He was close.
there you are. Okay. We went overtime.
You missed my levitation demonstration and Penny superpositioning example.
He's bullshitting you, Daryl.
I'm up here trying to get, hold on. I'm trying to get back control. What happened was we hit a little glitchy and the thing went wild, so I really didn't care. And
I'm going to stop my recording on my side.
Do this thing, and I think it would be great to have Robert here if I can get him in. Damn.